Now, it seems barely a day goes by without hearing the name of a new typhoon, hurricane or cyclone threatening to bring terrible weather somewhere in the world. Well, today, the name to remember is Tropical Storm Trudy, which is currently drenching southern Mexico. It's caused mudslides and flooding that have left at least 6 people dead. Well, let's find out a little more about this. Wynne is here in the studio. Jay.
Thanks, Matthew. Well, you're absolutely right. Yes, Tropical Storm Trudy has brought some flooding rains to the southern Mexican state of Guerrero, cutting off rural communities and hampering the rescue efforts to reach those flood victims. In Marquilia, around 112 kilometers down the coast from Acapulco, one of the main bridges has been partially destroyed, forcing local residents to wade through the flooded river using a rope to prevent them from being swept away by the very strong currents. Now, the flooding has caused a number of landslides, washing whole trees and piles of debris into the remnants of the bridge. The swollen river continues to threaten local communities, with water levels still creeping up to those residential areas. A state of emergency has been declared in some 36 municipalities, and over 4,000 people have been evacuated to 11 shelters in the area so far. So let's take a closer look at what's been going on with the weather in this part of the world. Satellite sequence goes back a little while. You can actually see Hurricane Gonzalo there crossing Bermuda, but we're more interested in Tropical Storm Trudy, which came in from the Pacific, bringing those flooding rains. It dissipated pretty quickly, but a lot of the moisture left over has drifted on to the other side of Mexico. More on that in just a second, because the Pacific hurricane season has been very busy so far this year. 9 major hurricanes. That's the most we've seen for some 22 years. Just contrast that with what we've seen in the Atlantic hurricane season, because at the moment it's around about average, with only 1 major hurricane so far, and that is, of course, Hurricane Gonzalo, which is still bringing some trouble to the north and the west of Europe. Let's go back to the Gulf of Mexico, because the leftover moisture from Trudy may well contribute to the next tropical storm forming in this part of the world, and that will up the numbers for the Atlantic hurricane season. One way or another, we're going to see some pretty wet weather in Mexico, and that wet weather is going to move its way from west to east against the surface winds, which you can see here, and that's because this system will be driven by the upper level winds. Now, to the north of this system, we've got an upper level low. To the south of it, an upper level high. The resultant westerly wind is going to push that rain away from Mexico, and by the end of the week, it'll be getting its way towards Cuba and Florida. So some very wet weather over the next few days in this part of the world. Matthew.
Jay, thanks very much for taking us through all of that.